guys, welcome to Banyan Botanicals YouTube channel where we share health and wellness tips and speak to Ayurveda experts. And today we have a special guest, Robert Sachs. Robert, do you want to take a second to introduce yourself?
Sure. My interest in Ayurveda really came when Melanie and I were first introduced to our first Ayurvedic physician, which was in about 1976. He was the physician to Osho. His name was Shyam Singh, and this was in London. And we had our first Ayurvedic program there at that time. And later on, what happened was, although we were looking at Tibetan medicine, we focused mostly on macrobiotics. Interestingly enough, our first long, extensive macrobiotic program was at Mandir, which is a very, very well-known vegetarian Indian restaurant in London. After that, Melanie went on to study with Dr. Ladd. I was doing social work and other things, as well as doing body work, because that was where I was pretty much coming from. And we very much were looking at food together, but then I took an emphasis also in looking at massage and body work in general. And then during the time when Melanie was in class with Dr. Ladd, I met Dr. Lobsang Ropke, a Tibetan doctor who was doing a program with Dr. Ladd. We became close friends. I then began to study with him directly. And from that, I did a book that came out maybe about 15 years ago called Tibetan Ayurveda, Health Secrets from the Roof of the World. And then, because of my particular interest in bodywork and Melanie's involvement with the spa industry, we collaborated and put together the book called Ayurvedic Spa, which really looks at the kind of bodywork techniques from both the Indian and Tibetan tradition that we've seen be so effective in the spa industry.
That's really cool. So we're talking all about bodywork today. And
yes, we can do that.
And in Ayurveda, there's a lot of attention that goes to food, but there are also lots of other ways that one can balance their body, and body work is one of them. So how is Ayurvedic body work different from Western style of body work, like a Swedish massage or a deep tissue massage?
Okay, for one thing, what I would say is so much of what is known as Western body work was originally Ayurvedic.
Interesting.
One of the people by the name of Per Ling, who was responsible in Sweden for bringing quote-unquote Swedish massage to Sweden and then to America, was actually someone who traveled in India. So you actually find that, for example, many of the movements that are done in Western massage come directly out of Ayurveda. I know that there was a lot of, at one point when reflexology became something which everybody became interested here in the West, there was an attempt to try and say that it was invented in the early 40s, when in fact, basically what it is that Ayurveda has always recognized that our body is a microcosm of the macrocosm, and that there are all these maps that are on the ears, on the tongue, and the eyes, all over the body, including the feet. So all of the zones, so to speak, that are identified in Western reflexology are no different from the marmas identified in Ayurveda thousands of years ago. From the standpoint of looking at body work, I sort of defer to a more a simple way in which Tibetan Ayurveda classifies levels of intervention. Mm-hmm. There are like 4 levels of Tibetan medicine. The first level being basically lifestyle changes. And in those lifestyle changes, 90% of that 90% is about diet. Mm-hmm. And so the idea is that basically if you're taking care of your diet, if you're looking over your hygiene and you're getting good rest and you're doing all the things that really support the type of body type that you have, then things should go well. However, what does happen is, let's say, accumulation builds up, stress builds up, and sometimes what happens is as we accumulate toxins and we have a variety of symptoms, sometimes what happens is we need to clean the body out or get the energy activated more in order for someone's Agni in terms of their diet to kick in properly. So it's kind of like the idea of sometimes if you try and pour pure water into a dirty glass, you just end up with a lot of dirty water. In which case, the approach is basically, how do you begin to clean the glass, or how do you get that old water out so that the fresh water can then be used as fresh water? So in that regard, the second level of Tibetan medicine actually has to do with detoxification, with rejuvenation. It's really a strong emphasis in that way in terms of hydrotherapy and massage, supplementation, all of which are considered to be a little bit more invasive, require a little bit more expertise, but certainly a very important way of bringing balance when balance through lifestyle is not achievable.
Okay, that's very interesting. So, if I'm understanding you correctly, that somebody going for Swedish massage in a Western spa would get somewhat similar benefits that you would get from going to an Ayurvedic spa?
It depends probably on the knowledge of the person doing the Swedish massage. Okay. I mean, really, it's very interesting. We've been thinking in terms of changing our website and wanted to come up with a new kind of byline for it. And in some ways, what we're thinking of is the byline, it's only natural. Mm-hmm. Meaning that so much of this information is natural. When our channels and our minds are clear, the intuition that we have takes us pretty much in an Ayurvedic direction. So what I would say is, if someone has that kind of intuition and sensitivity, more than likely they will actually be using Ayurvedic sensibility. Now, let's say, for example, they have the things they've been using because they haven't been introduced, for example, to Ayurvedic products or necessarily the orders of how things are done. And some of the problems we run into has more to do with culture and litigation than necessarily whether people that do Swedish massage practice as extensively or as therapeutically as they possibly could do. For example, very little in a lot of the massage schools in the United States emphasize abdominal massage.
I know, such a huge difference when you go to India.
Exactly. Okay, so here we have it where in order to really look at the idea of, one, directing vata back to the Sita vata, but also increasing the circulation into the gut, which makes it so that as you begin to move the blood more, the toxicity moves to the gut that can be eliminated. Here we have a situation where there's like a taboo and a real concern, in terms of litigation with respect to abdominal massage. Interestingly enough, when we teach abhyanga and we talk about our bodywork, a lot of our bodywork methods have abdominal massage. I talk to students that do come about why abdominal massage is so important. We teach them the technique. They see the difference. Then when they go home, we give them little prompters as to what they can say to their clients. And suddenly what ends up happening is, once they've applied the technique that we show them, which is a very simple Tibetan protocol, what happens is their clients then start requesting abdominal massage. Okay, so it's very interesting to see that there's all sorts of ways in which you can do it, and you overcome that just by being skillful, by being really directed. So there's that. The other thing that's there, which is not necessarily emphasized in massage schools, is that when you're doing a technique on the body, the importance of doing a massage stroke is that you've got good slip. And that is the emphasis that's mentioned with respect to anything that's put on the body. So, for example, when I was training in Swedish massage at massage school here in the United States, we were using mineral oil, baby oil, which is, extremely toxic stuff. And then even after that, I know of many, many people that say, I could never use oil on my clients. I'll only use lotions, which oftentimes have parabens, all sorts of things you wouldn't want on the body. Yeah, and in many respects, what I would say is, and this is a very important aspect of Ayurveda and Ayurveda's understanding of bodywork, is that the skin is an organ that eats. It ingests. Therefore, why would you put on the skin something that your digestive system couldn't handle?
Yes, of
And
course.
therefore, the idea is, for example, a lot of what happens with respect to panchakarma is that, or even abhyanga, basically, is that you are feeding the body. You are pushing oil into the system, this nutrition in through the skin. And as you do that, and as you actually increase the radiance in the body through the skin, increase the vitality, the whole body begins to respond. The other thing I would say is and this is something that what we've observed over the years, is that because people are so vata at this point, I mean, it's one of the things, according to Tibetan Ayurveda, the historical Buddha once predicted that this time period would be a time of increased vata, where in fact you have chronic and degenerative diseases, you have a variety of various kind of mental illnesses that occur as well. And what we're looking at is that oftentimes what we see is people that need to be grounded. So here you are, you talk to them about diet, you talk to them about supplements, and what happens is if you put that in with all the other like impressions that they're being given and they're being bombarded with on an ongoing basis, oftentimes they don't have the screening mechanisms because they're so vata to be able to discern what's useful and what's not. So they'll do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, they'll do chiropractic, but they'll go to an Ayurvedic practitioner, but then they'll go to acupuncture, get some Chinese supplements, and then take Prozac. So you have this situation where, to me, that's a symptom of just extreme vata. What we have observed is, and this is actually what we recommend with many of the clients who do come to us for consultations, is for us to do a few sessions of body work. Because as we touch the body and we slow vata down as we ground the person, they can actually hear the information.
You're making me want to go to a massage.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, living in a city, it's just like periodically you just need that contact just to ground everything, to come back to your senses. I mean, that's what good body work does, is it brings you back to your senses.
So let's talk a little bit more about oil and nourishing the body through the use of different oils.
Yes.
Because in Ayurveda, and I agree with you 100%, is that our skin absorbs everything we put on it.
Correct.
And in Ayurveda, there's traditionally some herbs in the oil. So you can use pure oils, but you can also use oils with herbs, like a vata oil, a pitta oil, or kapha oil. What is the point of using so much oil? Because when Dr. Ladd was talking, he would say use 4 ounces of oil.
It seems like a lot, doesn't it?
It is.
It is a lot, and I would say probably on average, in terms of the massages we give, it is about 3.5 ounces of oil that we're using. And again, some of it's going to depend. For example, you do a little bit less for pitta body types because, I mean, I've had probably the most interesting thing was using the oil that I was using on a very pitta client. And what happened was she began to experience nausea. And all I did was take a towel and wipe the back of her legs with the oil, and the nausea went away immediately.
Wow.
So what was happening is it was beginning to insulate the body. It was beginning to heat her up. Because in many respects, what it is that what oil does is it actually, in terms of feeding the skin, you have to realize that the skin is alive. The skin is actually has its own layers of microbes, very similar to what's in the gut. So as you begin to use oil on the body, you actually make it so that not only does the skin become supple, it actually begins to work more with communicating throughout the entire body. It connects things. What we were taught was that really the whole surface of the skin is the 108th marma. It is it's a marma in its entirety. So much so that what I tell people is, if you're afraid of those scanners in the airports, ask to be patted down. Because what happens is, as you get patted down and they touch all the surfaces of your body, it grounds you. You don't have as much jet lag afterwards.
That's a good one.
I know, it's a really good thing to know. But anyway, in terms of the oil, Absolutely. What we look at is a good quality vegetable oil primarily. And then, yeah, sure, the idea is depending on whether the skin is dry, depending on whether the skin is inflamed, then what happens is obviously in terms of body type, in terms of condition, you would want to use different herbs in the oil. At the same time, what I would tell most people is if you're more of a Vata body type, just choose sesame oil. If you're Pitta, choose sunflower. If you're Kapha, you can go for sesame or you can go for something like almond. The idea is that you want an oil for Vata types that is penetrating, that is nourishing, especially for very dry skin or mature skin. If a person's more Pitta, you want to give something which does not penetrate so deep, but at the same time is not so reactive to the skin and doesn't heat the body up as much. And for Kapha, what you want is something that is a little bit more stimulating, a little bit more heating. So that's just kind of like a general thing. If it comes down to you having no access to Ayurvedic herbs or Ayurvedic herbal oils, then what I would say is in the long run, for example, when traveling, you might even find that any oil is better than none.
That's true. And you can always order oils on Banyan Botanicals
Banyan
website.
Botanicals, absolutely.
um, let's talk a little bit about doing a self-massage.
Yes.
Because I feel like spa is good, but it takes time to get there. It's sometimes expensive for a lot of people,
Sure.
especially if you're doing it on a regular basis. Doing it once a month is good as a treat, but you want to experience the benefits of the massage at home as well. So what are some just basic guidelines for doing a self-massage at home?
When it comes to self-massage, let's say you don't necessarily know a lot about massage strokes. If you understand that so much of what abhyanga is about is feeding the body through the skin, then the best thing to do is to find a good oil. Maybe take once a week if you can. When we travel, we try and do it every day when we're traveling, and literally just have it so that it's a good quality oil. You just cover your body with it. Let the oil stay in your body for no longer than about 20 minutes. And then what we like to do is, you can rinse off it. You can soak in warm water in a tub and allow some of the oil to penetrate, and then you try and wipe some off. We also like the idea of using an ubtan, a Ayurvedic powder, which sadly enough, what I've observed in some of the Ayurvedic services that are being offered, even in the context of Panchakarma, the use of ubvartan or ubtan is not necessarily being used as much. To me, what's important about this, and this is something that I've seen, is that with massage, it's a standard line that you hear from massage therapists when somebody says, oh, the next day I was feeling kind of sore, a little bit sluggish, and they'll say, well, that's because you're detoxifying. In fact, what's going on is if you do not get enough of the oil out of your skin, what happens is after you've put oil on or you've learned massage strokes to massage it in if you're a therapist, then what happens is it activates toxins, lactic acid, and then what happens is if you don't get that oil off in a timely or efficient manner, what happens is your body actually retoxifies. So you're getting a higher concentration of the toxin from the oil, and that's what accounts for the sluggishness and the soreness. If you use an ubtan on your body afterwards, and this can be as simple as taking something like barley flour or chickpea flour, you can use it dry and rub it all over the body and then stand in a shower and rinse off. Or you can turn it into a paste and rub it on. Of course, if it's cold out, you feel colder because it's a wet paste.
Yeah.
But if you do that and let it sit on the skin for about 5 minutes, the next day you will notice that you just feel light. You don't feel tired. You don't feel sluggish. You don't feel sore.
That's really cool. Very helpful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing all your amazing knowledge and tips. I definitely learned a lot, and I need a massage.
I hope you know somewhere in the city to go get one.
Yeah. Where can people find more information about you and your workshops?
If they go to diamondwayayurveda.com, that is the website that both Melanie and I have. It has not only, I mean, we have a full range of products. I mean, beyond what Banyan does, we have our books, we have our videos, we have like Chirodara equipment, we have various things that we have helped to bring into the country. And then there is a calendar of events, which at this point we shall probably have the calendar up for the fall, probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay. Well, great. Thank you. And guys, subscribe to Banyan Botanicals channel to stay updated on all the interviews.